Stop. All right. I am so excited to have a voice. And I'm so excited to be here with Kristy Cambron. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so fun. And I'm just bringing in our Instagram people, and then we're good everywhere. What an exciting time to get to visit with you, Kristy. Kristy is not only a best-selling author, she's an award-winning author. She's just amazing. And this is going to be a really fun visit because we are going to talk not only about writing, but about all things French. Ooh la la. And so and I'll try and remember to say this more than once. A lot of you have done these before now with me and know the drill. Be sure as you come in and see, they're so well trained. They're already coming in and reminding us where they're coming from, because it's always so much fun. Everybody knows my goal someday is to get every state in the United States here on a Sunday afternoon with us. I haven't done it yet, but I appreciate those of you who are coming. So I see Bev has arrived from Minnesota. Hi, Kathy. Kathy has come from North Idaho. Diane is here from New Jersey. And Nancy made it from Wisconsin. Nancy, was it you who said that you remembered Kristy from when you had a bookstore? Am I remembering that correctly? I thought you said something to that effect. So let me know. We've also got
I saw that on Facebook. Did I see that? Did I see her comment on Facebook?
Yeah, wasn't that her who said that?
I think that was you, Nancy.
Yeah, so that's so kind of fun, like old home week for Nancy. And we've got a lot of our Insta gang here too. Hi, everybody from Insta who's joining us. And thanks for letting us know where you're coming from, also Instagram people, because it's really fun to know where all you are from. And I'm sure some of you are already aware of Kristy and you heard about her and said, oh, I will be there tonight. So, and she might be new to some of you. I might be new to some of you. I'm just going to state right now, some of you saw my sad, pathetic little lame post the other day where I couldn't talk. Oh my gosh, my husband had a whole day off from me talking. For me to, the worst thing in the world for an extrovert is to lose her voice. And I'm like, I can't talk. And you can tell I still sound like a frog prince, but you know what? That's okay, because that way, Kristy will be able to get a word in edgewise. It's going to work out just fine. Anyway,
I'm an introvert, but we like to talk too, so that'll work.
This will work great. And Anna's coming in from Denver. I see. Let's see. Beck from West Virginia is here, and Cynthia is here. Kitten Judy, that's such a cute name. I like that handle. Okay. So yeah, I'm trying to make sure I welcome everybody. And from Dan is coming from Denver. So yeah, remember, just holler where you're coming in from, and feel free Zephyr Hills has arrived. Hi, Debbie. So if you feel free to ring in, I'll try and monitor for questions. If you have questions as we're going along to ask Kristy, I have a few. And so we're just going to get started right now. I'll try and make sure to monitor and say hi as you're coming in. But and for those of you who will be watching later, welcome. I'm glad you'll be able to join us. Leslie has arrived. Hey. And those of you who are live joining us, it's always good to be at the party and not after the party, because usually there's a giveaway at the party. And Kristy, look what she's going to give away. Oh my gosh. She's going to give away an ARC of her upcoming book.
In your mailbox. Someone's going to win it tonight. So
amazing. Oh my gosh. So you guys, you can just thank me now for dragging her here tonight and convincing her that she wanted to come and talk with us.
I did want to come.
It'll be fun. And we were talking earlier, I told Kristy, I kind of been watching her from a distance online for quite a while now. I'm going, oh, she just seems so neat. Oh gosh, I'd really like to talk to her. And I finally got brave and reached out and said, hey, would you like to come and talk to me online? And she was kind enough to do that. So we're going to jump right in after I say hi to Katrina. So anyway, here we go. So first of all, tell us just a little bit about yourself. How long have you been writing, and what drew you to historical novels, all things? Because there's anything you could write. So how did you end up doing that? When did you start writing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I've been a published author. I'm working on my 12th novel now, but backing up, I'm going to back way up here. When I was young, I actually wanted to be a Disney animator, but it's this kind of joke in our family that I always say I have these hands that can't paint, they can't draw, they can't sculpt, I couldn't do anything. And when I was young, those were back in the days before computer-aided design, before CGI, definitely before AI. And so if you didn't have the hands, the skills to be able to be an artist, I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with my life? But I remember when I was young, and here's a huge plug for libraries and librarians and bookshops as well, but libraries. My mom used to take my sister and I to the library in the summer every week. And my sister would run to the fiction section and she would get all those books. I would go the other way. I would go to the art history and the animation section, and I would sit on the floor, crisscross applesauce, and I would pull down these thick volumes of art history, and I would just be thumbing through just these visual stories. So by the time I got to college, I knew I had these hands that couldn't be an art major, but I wanted to go to art school. And so I fell in love with art history and research writing, having no idea that I was going to actually become an author. So I had a long history of working in corporate America. I was a corporate trainer, got to work with the Disney organization and some really cool projects. But that was all technical writing. That was doing curriculum design and adult education. So for me, the fun thing when I was working in corporate America all day, I would come home, and I'm definitely a pantser. If you all know about writers, we're either plotters or pantsers or hybrids. And I was that. I would just sit down, and wherever the story would go, the stories would just kind of flow out of my heart. And so the novels that I write are historical fiction, but they always have some aspect of art and history in them. So I've written a book called The Italian Ballerina. So we had ballet. Or I've written a novel with one of my favorites, The Paris Dressmaker. And it was all about fashion houses in Paris during World War II. And so for me, just that marriage of loving visual stories and storytelling and history, they came together, and I had no idea what I was doing. I knew nothing about publishing. I knew no one in the industry, but I just said, I want to go for publication and I want to try to do this. And so now I've been writing, as I said, 12th novel now.
Wow, that is just so cool. It's so interesting how we end up where we end up sometimes, isn't it? I mean, did you never, I'm sure, imagined yourself as becoming an award-winning best-selling author? How
No.
cool.
It was a lottery dream. Do y'all ever think of, if I won the lottery, I would do this or this or this? This was my lottery dream, to be an author, to write stories. That was the lottery dream. And so, so it's something that our whole family bought into. My husband, our sons, my sister, my parents, we all bought into this dream. And it's been incredible to get to meet with readers and to get to share stories in this way. And it's funny that we were talking about the art. I still am the same person. I keep this on my desk, Art History 101. Like, it's just die hard. And if I could kind of turn my camera just a little bit, I'll give you guys just kind of an insight into my world. Here are my shelves, and everything in my world is color coded. So everything.
Oh my goodness.
Everything is the art student in me. Just a little insight.
Impressive. That is seriously impressive. Oh my gosh. And it's interesting because you made the comment about, winning the lottery kind of thing. But you know what? The old, you can't win if you don't play. You didn't just get lucky and get published. You got in there and you did work. And by the way, guys, I should just drop a little hint. Come St. Patty's Day, if all goes according to plan, I'm going to be doing a very special little get together for all of us on ideas on how we do make our own luck with someone you're definitely not going to want missing. But I'll keep that a secret for right now. But I just think that's interesting that you mentioned that, because so many people, and to me, I can't remember what they say, the statistic of people who actually write a book is very small, but I feel like we're everywhere. I mean, it's like, how can that, I always question, is that really right? But I guess everybody on the planet wants to write a book, but not everybody does. So the fact that you have written one, not just one, but a dozen now, is just, is really an accomplishment. That's just, really cool. And you did it because you sat down and started doing it. You didn't just say, I sure would like to write a book someday. So I just think that's inspiring. By the way, I want to take a second. We have got a lot of people that have come in, and Tariq from Morocco. He very often joins us, and I just love that he comes all the way here to hang out with us on a Sunday and talk with writers. So thanks, Tariq. And Leslie is with us, and Bev has joined us. Diane Clark has joined us. Diane says, my niece has her master's degree in art history. She is a loving mother of 2 and wife, really not using her degree yet. Well, there are seasons. There will probably come a point when she will. Wouldn't you say so, Kristy?
Oh, absolutely. I wasn't sure I was really ever going to use my art history degree again, because I was working in corporate America in healthcare. I was a traveling corporate trainer, and I wasn't sure how I was going to use it. And then went for publication and found a way to incorporate my heart, my passion, and my interest into the novels that I write. So yeah, I love that. Seasons. That's a perfect way of putting it.
Pretty cool. Now, I did mention that she is an award-winning author. I would love you to just tell us a little bit. You have won a Christie Award. What book was that for?
That was for The Painted Castle. That was in my Castle series. And I love that I have the opportunity to write something it was really the first novel that was really personal to me. So there was a World War II storyline set in Framlingham, England, a B-17 bomber unit. Well, my grandfather was a co-pilot in the 390th Bomb Group, the 571st Division out of Framlingham. And so I literally took a piece of history, which was his Army Air Force. It was before the Air Force, but the Army Air Force book for the 390th group. And I had all of this research material, and I wrote a story, a novel about, in a sense, his unit and his position in the war. And that one also incorporated art history. So we had a storyline incorporating a Queen Victoria and a very famous painting that is a real life painting that was actually done of her, and Prince Albert kept it in his private office. It was to him. So I wrote of things that were important to me and of interest to me, but very emotional, very, very heartfelt, to feel like I was writing, in a sense, part of my grandfather's story. So yeah, The Painted Castle.
And that's a very prestigious award for those of you who are not familiar with the Christie Award. It's really a big deal to win a Christie. So that's just huge. By the way, I see my buddies, Howard and Melanie. Hey, Howard. That's so fun that they've joined. And Casey is here. And anyway, thank you, all of you who are joining us just now. For those of you who have just arrived, congratulations that you're here on High Tide of Kansas. You're here because you're going to put your name in the drawing later on to win this ARC of Christie's upcoming book, which we will get to. Is that a gorgeous cover? Oh, I love that cover.
Love it.
So cool. So anyway, so that's a little bit about her background. Now, but you do seem, I'm excited because I'll get to what I'm excited about reading in a minute. But first of all, let's go back. You've done quite a few World War II historicals. And I keep thinking, gosh, are we ever going to run out of things to talk about when it comes to World War II? Have we not said it all? But you seem to be finding new stories to tell. So what's with the gravitating to World War II?
Yeah, again, that is part of the soundtrack of my youth, if you will. My grandfather, hearing his stories of World War II. I remember going to a couple of the 390th Bomb Group reunions. Now, the women and the children were not allowed in the actual reunion itself, but I remember being there. I remember that being a part of my upbringing and hearing his stories. And so for me, it's a combination of trying to find these pockets of history that I don't know anything about, that I might hear something about, or that a reader will tip me off and say, hey, this is really interesting. You should look into this. That actually became one of my novels. I'll mention that in a minute. But then also looking at it from what I love to do are strong female characters and female heroines, and looking at history through their lens, and in a sense, telling a new story, a fresh story on some topics that I didn't know about. One of my novels, The Italian Ballerina, actually came from a reader probably a decade ago. And I don't remember who the reader is. So if it's you, thank you so much. That became a novel. But it was a pocket of history about something called Syndrome K. And it was at a hospital on Tiber Island in Rome during the Nazi occupation, where they actually invented a fake plague to fool the Nazis and save Jews out of the hospital. This is a true story. And the Nazis never figured out what was going on. And so I thought, that is fascinating. And I held on to that for almost a decade until I felt like the time was right to write that novel. And then The Italian Ballerina was born out of that. So it's looking for these pockets of history. A lot of times what I'll find is a really interesting podcast. I'm a history nerd over here. So I listen to all the history podcasts. The Paris Dressmaker, another one. One of the podcasts that I love is called Dressed, the history of fashion. And they had an episode years ago where they were talking about all of the women, the Parisians or the Parisiennes, the women in Nazi occupied Paris who were defying the Nazis just with what they wore, just with their fashion. And I found that so fascinating, and it became an entire novel. And so for me, World War II is something that, again, the soundtrack of my youth, and I have interest in, and I just keep finding stories. You just keep finding these pockets of history that you really want to tell that story.
I love that. I made a note of that podcast. I'm going to check that out because I love podcasts. I am so into podcasts these days. Another one I've listened to is, I think it's called Things You Missed in History Class. Have you
Yes,
heard of
love that one.
I
Yes,
love that one. All
yes.
kinds of odd little things and people that you might not have, normally heard of. Hi, Cindy. Thank you, Cindy. I am feeling good enough to talk, so that is a good thing. So Gerhard of it had a break yesterday, and now I'm talking again. Poor man. And all of you who've come in recently, thanks for joining us. I hope you're enjoying hearing about what's going on here with the fascinating Kristy Cambron. I just think she's just so interesting in all the things that she's finding out and things she's doing, and I can hardly wait to talk about a couple of her upcoming books, which we will get to. But I want to circle back again. Before we go into talking about the French kitchen, I am hardly wait. I've got it coming tomorrow. The Illusionist Apprentice. I love magic. I just love magicians and magic tricks and Houdini. And but that is you got into type out Houdini and spiritualists and a murder. What on earth? How on earth did you get into that?
Well, it's really the true mystery novel that I've written. It really would be characterized as a historical mystery. And I wanted to do something different. And as authors, we know that we always want to stretch and grow and try new things. And so I came across this pocket of history, this story that was supposedly true, turned out to be false. But supposedly there was a man who showed up in 1962 or 1963 in Times Square, Manhattan, was hit by a taxi cab and was killed. And the most unbelievable thing was that happened. But then when they started looking at him, he was dressed as if he was from the 1800s, and he had clothing that could only be made at a certain time in history. He had a stable ticket for like his wagon or his horse that could only have come from that time in the late 1800s. And so they were talking about time travel. Is time travel possible? And so I thought, what in the world? And so I wanted to kind of expand upon that. And I was writing two novels that were jazz age entertainers. The first one was on John and Mabel Ringling and the Ringling Brothers' rise to fame in the jazz age. So the circus, that one's called The Ringmaster's Wife. And then this one, The Illusionist Apprentice, I wanted to tackle illusion and Harry Houdini and vaudeville. And I thought it would be really cool to do a spin on that story, which actually turned out to be a 1960s sci-fi article that was not true, but people took it as true. And all of a sudden they thought time travel was possible. Very Orson Welles thing, but that became the novel. And so I wanted to write something about the 1920s that wasn't prohibition, that was different. And the spiritualism was really gaining steam. And this was later in Harry Houdini's fame. And one thing I couldn't wait to tell all of your friends and viewers that are out there today is every time I talk about one of my books, if I do like a book club or I do an event, I tell you all the Easter eggs that are in the book, all the secret things. And so those of you who have read Sir Arthur Conan Doyle novels and Sherlock Holmes. Okay, so when you're reading The Illusionist Apprentice, see if you can pick out some of the names that may be familiar from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and it might help you pick out the villains. I'm just saying. But because Harry Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle had a very public feud. Houdini
I remember that.
Yes, he was debunking spiritualists.
Got into the whole spiritualism.
Yes, right? Absolutely. And so there was this very public feud. I didn't write that into the novel, but I did kind of in the Easter egg way with some of the character names. So yeah, I just wanted something that was, again, a strong female character. And she is actually an illusionist on stage, and she becomes an apprentice to Harry Houdini himself. And she begins helping him to debunk these false and fake spiritualists who are claiming to be able to bring someone back from the grave, kind of like the time travel guy. So that's where that novel came from. And it was the burgeoning FBI in Boston and jazz age and flappers and magic and illusion. And I mean, it was just so much fun to write. It was a great novel to get to research and write that one.
Well, I can hardly wait to read that. I'm the Ringmaster's Daughter because, again, I love the circus too. So I'm going to be pawing through all of your books at a very rapid pace while I wait for the new one to come out. And by the way, we've had some new people. I see my buddy Carol has joined us. And hi to Nancy Brady. A little late, but better late than never, right, Nancy? And you can scroll back and watch what you've missed. And hi to Joe Marie. And if there's anybody I'm missing, saying hi to. I always have a castle till. You guys, I apologize. I can't always figure out your handles on Instagram, but I'm really happy some of our Insta people have joined us also. And I apologize because I'm probably murdering your names here. Good. Something good. city girl. Oh, you guys, I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm really glad you're here, even though I'm
We're glad you're here.
terribly. Oh, golly. Anyway, so those are a few of her past books she's done. But now I want to move on to the upcoming book, The French Kitchen. Oh, I mean, just the cover. Show us the cover again. Oh, I just love that cover. I love that cover. It just looks yummy. And another World War II, but I believe we are going to see Julia Child in this.
We are. Oh my goodness. So another podcast, if you're taking notes, jot down The History Chicks, because I love, it's all about women in history. And I was listening to a podcast episode. I was thinking about, at the time, I was thinking about my next book, what did I want to write? I wasn't sure, what direction I wanted to go. And so I heard this podcast all about the life of Julia Child. And that's where I heard of her, quote, spy backstory, working for the American OSS, the precursor to the CIA, during World War II. Now, she didn't have any actual field agent assignments, but she did work in places like China and Sri Lanka. And so she was a field worker, but she did more of the administrative side. But she has some really cool projects. One of her projects in particular was to help with the development of shark repellent. What? Shark repellent? Because I know it's the coolest thing. Who has that on their resume? Only Julia Child. But there were some destroyers and things, and they were finding that there were mines out in the ocean. And when they would send the bombs off the ships, that the sharks were getting too close to the bombs and they were setting them off before they were hitting their target. And so they were trying to develop shark repellent to ensure that the sharks would stay away from the bombs so that they would hit their target. So I heard that podcast, and then because I live in Indiana, and one of our sons was at a basketball camp, and so our other boys were swimming, and I was sitting by the pool, and I was looking through this book right here. It's called As Always, Julia, and so it's about Julia Child, of course. And so I was flipping through, and I want to show you all this photo because you're just going to love it. It's an iconic photo of Julia Child at her Paris flat. It's called Rue de Lou. That's what they called it. And this is her little stove in her Paris flat. And I was just looking at this photograph, and I got this idea for a novel. And I typed it up, and I texted my agent, and I said, I have this idea for a novel. Is there something here? And she texted back immediately and said, where did you get this? And I said, I just wrote it just now. Can I write this? She said, this is your next novel. This is your next novel. That became The French Kitchen. And so it's about female spies during the American OSS during World War II. But there is a huge storyline that takes place in post-war Paris, in 1950s Paris, and Julia Child cooking classes. So I actually have someone who comes across Julia Child and attends her cooking classes before she was famous, before she was the French chef that we all have come to know, and the beloved French chef. And so, yes, to actually write Julia Child's character, to get to research her, to get to research these amazing females, the spies who worked in the OSS, and just how fearless they were, and Julia Child being one of them. It just was too incredible. Plus the food. Come on, Paris, French food. I mean, come on. Give me all the butter. Give me all the baked goods.
Butter. Everything's better with butter. That's my son always says that. He did a lot of
don't read it hungry.
I like that.
Don't read it hungry, or buy some croissants or something at the bakery before you read it, and have a snack ready, because you will be hungry. I kind of went there with the food in this novel.
So I want to know, first, a quick hi. We've got a couple people. I see that Debbie has joined us, and Ann. Hi, you guys who made it in. Thanks for joining us. I see Alyssa Reeds has joined us on Insta. Thanks, guys. So I'm curious to know, have you done any Julia Child recipes? Have you baked any French food?
Yes. I mean, okay, so I have this funny story. I got all excited, of course. You can go to the YouTube channel on PBS, and they have all of The French Chef seasons that you can watch. And so the first season, 1963, I said, okay, Julia, we're going to do this together. So I have my iPad in the kitchen. I've got all my stuff. I got all this fancy equipment, right? Like I bought a new chopping knife, and very quickly cut my finger pretty badly. So that's how it went. That's how it started, but it got a lot better. I did have an opportunity to make a couple of the recipes in the book. One of them, I believe it was her second recipe. The first one that she did was like coq au vin or something like that. And the second one was bœuf bourguignon, if I can say it with a French accent. And I actually have my characters make that in the book. And I actually made that the first time doing it all from scratch, braising the beef, putting a really good wine in the sauce, and really cooking it up exactly the way Julia did in the show. And if I can say, chef's kiss, it was pretty good.
Wow, that's something I want to make, and I haven't made that. That's the one thing. And my other favorite French food are petit fours, and that's about the only French thing I can pronounce. My French, I should have taken French, in high school, because I can't pronounce it at all. I would have said beef bourguignon. I read way back. I remember reading the three. The Three Musketeers, and I thought D'Artagnan was D'Artagnan. So I just, I can't pronounce my French. But oh my gosh, that sounds. Somebody told me, I could have sworn somebody on one of my posts when we were chatting before you came mentioned eclairs. Are eclairs a French pastry?
Yes, they are. And this is funny, but I know that because I am a huge nerd for the Great British Bake Off. Anyone else love that? That's one of my favorite shows. And they're British, they bake all of these French baked goods. And so, yes, eclairs are one of the things that are definitely French. I think my favorite are macarons. I love the coconut and the pistachio flavor. And it's so funny because our youngest son, when I was writing this book several years ago, it was actually during COVID, and, we were stuck in the house and everything. So we ordered macarons from this little bakery in Chicago, and it came with like dry ice, and they were cold and they were delicious. And I called it, research, like, I have to research for my book, but I just wanted macarons. So I got used to eating them. So I think they're probably my favorite French food or French baked good. I know that sounds simple, but I could eat them up.
That's another one I mispronounced. I was calling them macaroons, and somebody finally corrected me and said, "Sheila, that's not how you say it." It's like, oh, okay. By the way, I'll have to laugh because Cindy posted I took French in school. It wasn't pretty. I can identify with that. Oh my gosh.
Soyez jolie.
Jo Marie says Jo Marie loves to cook, and she's also been watching the British Bake Off. We watched that. We were visiting the kids in California, and I'm not sure how my husband got bamboozled into watching that. We're all into it, going, "That's really cool." And he's like falling asleep on the couch, going, "Don't ever make me do that again." So
I have a magnet on our refrigerator that I got from Parnassus Books in Nashville, and it is Paul Hollywood, and he's got his hand out and he's giving you a handshake when you go to get in the refrigerator. It's the best magnet I think I've ever seen, and it's front and center on our fridge.
Oh my gosh, that's just too funny. Oh dear. Well, we were chatting before we came on. Of course, let's make sure we know when the French Kitchen's coming out. It's not out quite yet. When does that release?
This is an advanced reader copy that we're giving away. The final copy should be here pretty soon, and this will release August 5th. But you can pre-order now. So you can pre-order at your chosen retailer. Please support indie bookshops and bookshop.org, and ask your libraries to
bookshop.org. Yeah. And if you guys, you all know that we have a lot of authors on here talking. We're always talking about our latest book. And I understand that a lot of us are on budgets. And so if you feel like you just can't, doggone, I wish I could buy every single book Sheila talks about. But if you can't, ask your local library to bring it in, because that is still a book sale that helps pay the author's bills. And then more people can enjoy it too. So don't be afraid to go into your library and ask for that. And this is one, of course, they will want to have, because it's World War II, it's historical. Julia Child, you can do a great sales job to your local library for this book. It's well worth having that come in. And pre-ordering is always good. As I've told you guys before, that really helps the authors. It makes their publishers very happy. It helps them make bestseller lists. And so when people pre-order, that is a really good thing. Yeah, Cindy says she uses her library a lot, and that is good. And that's a great way. I always said, so that's a really great way to meet new authors. I really do try to buy all my friends' books so that I can support them. And I just don't look at the bill when it comes. But when I've heard of a new author that I haven't maybe read yet, sometimes I will check it out at the library and see, is this someone I'm going to like? And then often, if I really like the book, then I go and get my little trophy book that sits. I'm going back to reading that someday. I have a couple on my trophy shelf that I haven't gotten back to, but they're there. I'm going to get to them eventually. But anyway, so that's a good thing you can do too. So if you want to pre-order it, go ahead and do that. But she has another one coming out that just sounds really, really fun. And tell us about that one. That's not a historical. Well, that's
Yes,
sort of
it is historical. It's the novel that I'm actually
right.
writing right now. We don't have a title yet. And Sheila, this is an exclusive for all of your friends here. I have not spoken about this novel that I'm writing publicly at all. So this is the general premise. It's 1960s. It's Mad Men meets Lessons in Chemistry. So it is about a female CEO of an ad agency in the early 1960s who takes over this ad agency that's having difficulty, but an all-female team has to work with clients that cater to products all for men. And so how are they going to handle this? I am already having such fun researching and writing. It's my first 1960s book that I've ever written. And so, yeah, so I'm having a wonderful time. And that novel as yet does not have a title, but it will be out in 2026. So you can just check out my Instagram. I will be updating everyone there on Instagram and Threads and Facebook as we have updates on that novel. So
Yes,
an exclusive, you heard it here first.
Yep, I already want that one too. By the way, Casey Barber has asked, will your book, I think she's talking about the French Kitchen, will it come out an audiobook at the same time as it comes out as a book?
Yes.
For those who want
yes,
audio.
it does. Yes.
Great.
It will,
All right.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
so you
great.
can go to your favorite audiobook retailer. Also support Libby and Overdrive through your library system as well. So you can, if you need to, you can try to get the audiobook that way.
I have got to check out Libby. I am so behind on everything. I keep hearing about Libby and I haven't done it yet. I do need to go into my library and say, hey, get me set up on this, because I think I can probably find a lot of new authors that way too, just checking things out on Libby. It's like so many books, so little time. It's just, I don't know. How do you manage to keep up with reading with your writing schedule? I mean, is that hard to do?
Well, one of the things that I have begun to do quite a bit in the last couple of years is really take advantage of audiobooks, just because I want to be healthy. I do have a spine condition, so I have to make sure that I am exercising, walking, hiking, running. And I just took that up with it again within the last 2 years. Last year, in fact, I was really excited. I hit 1,000 miles, 1,001 miles for the year. And so for me, it's walking and running at parks and hiking. And as long as you're safe, as long as you're safe wherever you are, it's listening to a lot of audiobooks. I don't even know how many audiobooks I got through, but that has really been helpful for me. And just in this kind of new season of life that I find myself in, not able to sit as much, but luckily we have many different ways that we can read. So I'm still able to get my reading in.
That is a good thing. Well, very cool. Yeah, and I know so many people are doing the audiobooks now. It does seem to be a really good thing, especially if you're in the car going someplace, and because it seems like when I'm home, I'm either writing or I'm doing something with my husband or doing something with friends, and the writing comes at bedtime, but then half the time, I know how that goes. You fall asleep with the book on your face. So.
Right? You don't want to hit yourself in the face.
Oh, golly. Anyway. Okay. Well, listen, does anybody have, as we're talking, do you have any other questions for Kristy? Please feel free to ring in. I'm not going to keep her too much longer. So if you have a burning question, now is the time to ask it. So, and while I'm waiting for those burning questions to come in, so I want to know what you do for fun and excitement when you're not writing.
Well, I mentioned it, walking, running, and hiking.
That's your fun and excitement. Okay.
That is my fun and excitement.
Wow.
We also have 3 sons, one in college, one in high school, and one in middle school. And so it is going wherever the kids are doing their sports, kind of tagging along. So we're in a very busy season. But I find joy and happiness. It's kind of like a hobby, being there for my kids. It's really a fun thing for me. So I enjoy that. I do enjoy cooking when I don't chop my finger, but I do. I enjoy that. I enjoy that as well. If I ever feel like I have writer's block or I'm blocked for some reason, a lot of times I'll go into the kitchen and I'll just start kneading some bread. I'll just start like making some homemade bread or something like that, because I don't know, it's just helpful for me to kind of get your hands on something else and just kind of let your mind go. So cooking's always been a hobby.
Oh yeah, that's always a fun thing to do. We do have a couple of questions here. Cindy wants to know, how did you begin writing?
Oh, wonderful.
Joe Marie asked that.
Oh, okay. Great question. Yeah. So I talked about it a little bit at the beginning of our call, how I was in art history classes in college. I went to Indiana University and I was in art school and really just wanted to have that creative outlet to be able to tell stories. And if I'm honest, I just sat down. and just started writing. I have a college degree in art history and research writing, but not anything in classical writing technique. It was just rolling up your sleeves and pulling yourself up to the desk in the chair and just getting the words down on paper, and then editing and learning and feedback and trying again. And I know we talked about it, Sheila, at the beginning. You have to really kind of have some resilience. You have to kind of have some fortitude to keep going. And it's really hard when you're working on writing a novel and trying to get published. And I remember our family, we had 2 years of solid rejections before we got our first yes. And my ninth, that is the number 9, my 9th full-length written manuscript was my first novel published. So
Wow, good on you.
Novels before that.
That is
some of them on floppy disks. Do y'all know what floppy disks are? That's how long I was trying to get published.
Oh, that's great. Well, I was when the pterodactyls flew, and you sent in a big old honking pile of papers, and boy, that got expensive. Oh my goodness. So, but that is really impressive that you just hung in there. And so I'm going to keep doing. I'm going again, because after that many rejections, I think a lot of us would say, "Never mind, I'm not meant to do this." So, yay you that you didn't give up. That's so
and it was
inspiring.
writing any chance that I got. I was working a very busy corporate job. We had 2 young sons under the age of, I think, 4 or 5 at the time. And then we were getting ready to have our 3rd son. And I remember my debut novel, I actually wrote that on my iPhone while I was on maternity leave, because it's the only time that I had. So often I would be in a skyscraper, like in an elevator, a long elevator ride. I was in the back typing on my phone, typing chapters.
Oh my goodness.
When a meeting would begin, I was on my phone typing chapters. When I was at an airport and we had a layover, I was always the person sitting over there in the terminal, dreaming big, wanted to be an author someday, and was typing chapters on my phone.
That is just, I love that. That is so inspiring. So guys, I hope you're getting the idea here of how persistence pays and how important it is to just not sit there and go, gee, I hope something happens, because
you can do it.
yeah, because sometimes you got to do a little bit more than hope. Cindy wants to know, do you research female Hollywood stars that helped during World War II? Have you done any of that?
Oh, you just spoke my language. I have wanted to do a golden age of Hollywood novel, and I have not done that yet, but I think you may have landed on something that is not far out on my horizon, because I have so much interest in it. We touched upon Josephine Baker just a bit in this novel, but no, I have not yet had the opportunity to do the golden age of Hollywood. But again, you are one of those prized readers that I'm like, yes, I'm listening to you. I hear you. These are fabulous ideas. I'm going to put that over here on my shelf, or this shelf right here. I'm going to put it on the shelf, and it'll probably pop up in a future novel. So thank you for the suggestion.
That's a great suggestion. I lost it somewhere in here. Oh, there it is, from Krista. How did it feel to see your books in the library or store? Is that an exciting moment or what?
Yes, my mama went with me, and my sister was there. We took pictures, and it was the most incredible thing. I think my first novel is The Butterfly and the Violin, and that one actually came from my years of schoolwork. It's on the art of Auschwitz, so the women's orchestra of Auschwitz, and the art that was found after the camp was liberated. And years down the road, you know how authors, we have to check for media hits and things online. So I was Googling the book, and I found an entry in the United States Memorial Holocaust Museum Library in Washington, D.C. And I thought, what is that? And I clicked on it. And those first 2 novels that I wrote, they're a series. They are actually in the permanent collection at the museum. Now that was something. You had to pick me up off the floor, because I just, the book, one of the books that has changed my life so much was the book Night by Elie Wiesel. Actually, if you look right up here, there are 2 copies of it right up there. That book changed my life, reading that book in college, and changed the course of my life. And so to write something that is actually in the permanent library collection at the museum that Elie Wiesel started, you can't fathom it. So yeah, it is a complete honor every time someone will commit to spending 8 to 10 hours of their life reading a book that you wrote. It's an honor every time I open a box and there are these inside. I don't take any of that lightly. It is an honor. It's humbling every time I get to meet with readers and I get to hear your stories. It is the most amazing thing because books are so powerful and stories are so powerful to unite people. It can just never get old. Seeing your book on a shelf, seeing your book beloved by a reader. If a reader says, "Oh, that's my favorite book," I mean, that's it. I'm done. I've done what I accomplished, or I've done what I set out to do. There's nothing better than that. So yeah, it's a beautiful question. Thank you for asking it, and it's a very humbling thing to have in your career.
So just a couple more questions. Leslie Henning would like to know, how do you celebrate finishing a book?
Oh, goodness. Oh, I love that. Sometimes we celebrate big, sometimes it may be one time we were at the beach on a fall break and I had to get my galleys, which galley proofs are the printed pages. That's your last opportunity to check for any typos or errors or changes that you want. And then you send it in and then you go to print. Well, I didn't finish it before we left. So I actually was sitting at the beach finishing my galleys. And then I went to the post office at the beach and mailed them to my editor. And then, we went out to dinner and celebrated big. And so, yeah, I think it's most of the time just trying to breathe and rest, because when you're in story mode and you're on deadline, you are so focused. I have no idea sometimes what's going on in the world, right, Sheila? Like, you're nodding, like you don't know what's going on in the world. And it's so funny because a lot of times I will leave the house to go to a coffee shop and write, and I'll say, "Okay, guys, bye. I'm going to Paris, 1944." And they're like, "Have a good time."
I'm going to time travel.
Yeah, because you just become so immersed in it. So I think it's finding that peace for yourself, that centering yourself, getting back to family, getting back to your routine. I love being out in nature. So for me, it's going out hiking, getting out in the natural world, that kind of thing. So yeah, that it may not sound like huge celebrations, but at some point, I think there will be a Paris trip celebration.
Oh, I think there definitely should be.
Maybe to celebrate like number 15 or something like that.
Well, I'm just impressed that you celebrate and you get out there. I am such not a hike. I'll go hiking if I can eat berries or something interesting along the way. But I'm just, Gerhard and myself hiking is me going, "Are we there yet?" And him, "Almost. Are we there yet?" "Almost." I'm terrible. Oh gosh. Okay, so
I love
just one more question. And Nancy would like to know if you're going to have any author events for this upcoming book.
Yes, thank you for asking. We are working on that now. Yes, our publicity team at HarperCollins is working on that. And so usually, because I'm in Southern Indiana, usually it's going to be easier for me to get in some of these locations that are like Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Louisville, Nashville, and surrounding areas. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to have bookshop events that could be outside of that. So yeah, just stay in touch with me on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. And I will be sure that once we have that information, we will make sure that we share that with everyone, because I would love to meet with you. And one of my favorite bookshops, I'm going to go ahead and give them a shout out, is Wild Geese Bookshop in Franklin, Indiana. And they do not know this yet, but in the back, in the acknowledgement section, I got to mention Wild Geese Bookshop because they're my favorite little bookshop. So they're actually mentioned in the back of this book.
That is so cool. Well, speaking of finding you, so give us some of your handles. I know you're on Insta because that's where I found you, but tell us where all we can find Kristy to hang out with her.
Yeah, you can go to KristyCambron.com. That's KristyCambron, KristyCambron.com. I'm Kristy Cambron on all social media, so you can just type it in on Facebook or Instagram. Also, I am a literary agent with Gardner Literary, and I work with authors, mostly fiction, but fiction and nonfiction. And a lot of what I chat about on Threads is actually agent-focused work. So for those of you who are aspiring authors, writers, I do a lot of just like this, like we're doing right now, just chatting and just talking. And so Threads is a really fun place for that. So make sure you hop out over there. And if you have any writing questions, hey, that's really me out there. And we can chat about it.
Very cool. One more thing. Katrina wants to know, are you going to Rag Tea? Rag. I've heard of Rag, but I don't remember what it is.
Not this year. I am supposed to go to the Historical Novel Society of North America conference in Las Vegas in June. So I'm going to make every effort to be there. So I'm really excited. It's my first time being there, and I will be taking author pitches. So if you are a historical novelist, I would love to meet with you and to hear about your book.
Very cool. And by the way, Ellen's hoping that you can get out to Cleveland, Ohio. So they may have to put that on your visiting list.
I will. I
We
grew
have
up in
ability to go
Ohio, so
everywhere.
I grew up in part in Ohio, outside of Cincinnati. I also grew up in northern Michigan, and so I've just kind of been a Midwest girl all over. But love Ohioans and would love to come visit you. So yeah, we'll keep that in mind.
Yep. And Nancy wants you to come to Baker's in Grand Rapids. Everybody wants you to come all over the planet, basically. So
I do want to go to Grand Rapids. I do. I actually, the novel that I was telling you about, the Mad Men Meets Lessons in Chemistry novel, that one I actually am going to have a storyline in northern Michigan, right up around the Port Huron area, because that's where I grew up as a kid, going across to Canada and all of that. And so I would love to have some events in Michigan that I have not yet had an opportunity to do. So thank you for that tip, and I will keep that in mind as well.
So you never know where you might find her. So be sure that you're following her on social media. And I see a few of you have sadly not been able to come in from the beginning and are just now joining us. So I hope you'll circle around and watch this from the beginning. It will still be hanging out on my Facebook page and also on my YouTube channel. So if you happen to miss out on the live, I'm so sorry about that, because this is a good one, but I'm really trying to keep that up for you so that you can view the rest of it later. And meanwhile, I just got to say thank you again to Kristy for taking time out of her own schedule. And I'd say it's 5 o'clock here. Where is it where you are? Because you're in the middle of the country. Are you an hour ahead of me, 2 hours ahead of me?
It's 8:45 here.
Okay, so it's time to let Kristy go and enjoy the rest of her evening. Anyway, but you guys, I appreciate you all so much joining us. Don't forget to be hanging out and following me too, because I've got so many fun things lined up for our gatherings and chats for the next few months. It's going to be just great. And so let's make sure that we remember to hang out together. And a big bye and thank you to Kristy.
Thank you.
It was so much fun. And that's, we said goodbye to our Insta people, and now goodbye, my Facebook buddies. Thanks for hanging out. Fun times.